I always felt bad about the guy that took my place because he had 2 children, you know, at least 2, and I always felt bad about that. And I think myself and Latimer and some of the other, we felt kind of guilty, you know, that, you know, we should have been there. And I think about it later, well, I'm glad I wasn't. You know, it's just fate, though. I mean, if I'd have signed that paper and Benfield hadn't told me he was going to Iceland, I would have went ahead and went because I'd already signed up and said I would do it. I would have done it, you know. But I sure didn't like that place. Plus, it's just flying up there tough. But that's about all I can.
Well, these guys are Cold War heroes. That's what they are.
Yeah, I just wish they would. You know, it aggravates me sometimes when I see how much money they spend on other things. And I'm not saying they're not worthy causes, but Jesus, people do dumb things and the government spends money to recover them, you know, and you get people that were, you know, doing their duty and, you know, you can't get them to, so it gets a little, we get a little testy about it, you know. I think we'll eventually make it, and Bob Petway has just worked his butt off, and so if anybody can do it, I'm sure he can get it done. Thank you.
My name is Willie Joe Williams. I was an ATR-2. I was in Iceland, vp-5. I was on crew 8. And I was in vp-5 61 through August of 63. And I was actually on a test op when the LA-9 went missing. And we never heard a word. The one thing I remember most that day when we were trying to contact emergency frequency was voice communication with Russian trawlers were yakking on you. You couldn't hear anybody if it was trying, I don't believe. And I never knew what happened to the aircraft or plane. I saw one piece in the paper in 66, I believe, when I found it, a paragraph, and that's all I knew till this past fall. I got to searching the Navy sites and I couldn't find any information. And I finally called Air Wing 11 here and they gave me vp-5's phone number and called him the 1st of August. And the lady answered the phone and said they just got back before him. And information officer was going to leave. Called back a couple of weeks, which I did. He gave me the website and address for the info. I found all the info about the reunion, what it took place, and that all the guys hadn't been removed, and that perturbed me a lot. Knowing the things I've seen over the past 30-40 years, what the extensive cost to recover remains, and that didn't seem to be done in this case, and I don't understand that. And they asked me to write my congressman, and I said, well, I don't know if I can do any good. I wrote about the same thing about American jobs, and it seemed to go 1 year after the other. But up there, and my feelings and my belief today, if you went down in that area, you were lost, and you know, there wasn't much hope of being saved, rescued. All the temperature of water and ice and the environment. And I just think, as a taxpayer and a former member of that outfit, that they ought to exhaust all means and plan a thorough job and go back and get it done. And that's the way I feel today.
Service, what years were you in vp-5?
I was in vp-5 from 59 to 62. My name is Doug Scoggins. I came into vp-5 in probably early 1959. I was a crew member on LA-8. I was a first tech on LA-8 on our deployment to Iceland. And Norm Russell was a very close friend and buddy that on our split deployment to Rota, Spain, and to Iceland, Norm went to Rota, and I went to Iceland. But during my tour with vp-5, we were very close, and that we made a lot of Liberty calls and together we saw many places, and so he was a very close friend. And on a change of command in vp-5, he came to Iceland. And I guess he had been there for approximately 1 week before they took their first initial flight, and that was the day that we lost LA-9. Now there's one story here that during his trip to Iceland, he had asked me to take that flight, and I told him I would take it, but there was some problem with that in that we either had a test flight or I had a dental appointment. I can't recall exactly what the circumstances, but I had to tell him later I couldn't take the flight because of the scheduled dental appointment. And that was a situation that, you know, I've always thought about, and that the accident was probably the main reason that I didn't extend in the Navy, because I made the decision after that you know, my flying days were over. And we did participate in the search, and I think for 10 to 14 days, we had crews out constantly, 12-hour flights. And but it was years later. In fact, when the recovery of the LA-9 was actually announced, I didn't hear about it until just a few years ago, because I had been out of the Navy for so long.
And after you found out about that it had been found and recovered and that body still remained in the ice, I mean, what is just Dunkley, what do you think about all of that?
I was very disappointed that you know, the Navy hadn't pursued the recovery. I have a son currently who's in the Marine Corps, and you know, those type of situations, I know how people feel about you know, the recovery of lost ones, and I was just very disappointed that we weren't able to recover all the crew.
Well, hopefully it's not over yet, and we'll still go get it.
I hope so.
Are there any other comments that you'd like to make?
Well, I just hope that the Navy will put together an effort to recover the remains of the crew that's left. And, you know, there has been some things done, but I don't think it's enough.
Okay, what years were you in vp-5?
My name is Ernest Mulick. I'm known by Nick. That's my middle name. And I joined vp-5 in 1961 as an AE2. And after going through vp-30 for air crew training, I joined the squadron. And in a month or so, I was placed on Flight Crew 6, which became Flight Crew 11 in July. We trained for cold weather operations, and sometime in November we deployed to Iceland. We flew the normal patrols in Iceland and flew Liberty runs over to Bodo, Norway, and Denmark and Scotland, things like that. Flew a lot of ice pack patrols, and Crew 3 was in Rota. Commander Kozak had been selected as XO with a squadron, and so when the change of command took place in January, around the first of the year, Commander Huber, who was the officer in charge in Iceland, became commanding officer, and he transferred down to Rota and took his crew with him, which became Crew 1. Commander Kozak's crew, which was Crew 3, they took his slot in Iceland as Crew 7. Crew 7 came to Iceland, flew one area familiarization flight, and then they were placed online as able to fly ice pack patrols. Ice pack patrols were generally very routine. Seldom did you ever have any problems. You weren't down, you didn't have to be down low on ice pack patrols. You generally flew them at 2,500 feet. And they were mostly just boring holes in the sky and taking pictures of the ice flow as it came down off the coast of Greenland. I don't honestly know why we were flying ice pack patrols in January. I don't think there was that much ice moving, but we still flew them. There was a tremendous amount of icebergs out there, and some of them were fairly tall. They were 700-800 feet. Anyway, Crew 7 took their first ice pack patrol, and later on, I don't know if it was the day or the evening, the word came up that they were not getting position reports for Crew 7, and that they may have to start launching SAR crews, that's search and rescue. So, of course, there was a lot of excitement during the evening. A lot of people probably didn't get much sleep. I don't recall exactly what I'd done. I know that everybody was extremely concerned that we had been up there, and here was a crew that had just got there, just getting, they really hadn't got their feet wet and flying in cold weather yet. So I and Crew 11, we all got up at probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, went down and got the airplane ready, and probably, I don't recall exact times, but probably launched, I'm guessing, somewhere around 7, 8 o'clock, something like that, because it really didn't do any good to go out, because we only had about 4 hours of daylight, and it truly wasn't real daylight. About the brightest that it got was a haze, kind of like a cloudy day down here, and you only had about 4 hours of that from about 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. But anyway, we proceeded up hoping that if there was somebody, if somebody heard the airplane, they would light a flare or something. We really thought that flying the ice pack patrol, that they would either be on the ice pack or they would be in the water. We knew we had a few, I think they were 800 or 900 foot icebergs up there, and we really couldn't imagine them being down at 800, 900 feet for the simple reason that the ice pack patrol is generally flown, if I recall, 2,500, 3,000 feet, depending on what your ceilings are. As it turned out, I don't know if I recall if it was the first or second day that we were out there, we got a real break as far as visibility goes because the sun was so bright. We had a real nice day. Well, the first day we went out, the storm was still on. They had got 60 feet of snow, predicted 60 feet of snow the day that the airplane was lost. So I think maybe, if I recall, I don't know, maybe this is rumor, it could be truth, that possibly they had sent back position reports and stated that they were flying in heavy snowstorms and heavy snowstorms. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if that's rumor or true. Seems like to me in the back of my mind that later on there was comments made about that they flew the whole patrol in a heavy snowstorm. Anyway, the second day, that snowstorm was still out there the first day, or it was very, very, visibility was very bad. Second day we went out, it was beautiful. I mean, the sun was shining, plenty of daylight, but we couldn't find anything. And I don't remember, there's a friend of mine sitting right over here, Marvin Coleman. I think it was a Crew 10 that found what they thought was polar bear tracks, but they really wasn't sure. They said, that's possibly human tracks. And we were basically looking for, we know since they had so much snow that if the airplane had crashed and burned, there would still be a black spot on the snow because the snow would have melted around the airplane unless the snow had put the fire out. So we were really looking for black traces on the snow where the airplane had hit the ice pack. Anyway, we did some work with those tracks. I know the next day after Crew 10 reported the tracks and took the pictures of them, we went up and dropped our hydraulic fluid came in a gallon can that was painted red. So the photo intelligence guy says, if you can get this can in anywhere near one of the tracks, so I can determine the physical size of the track, I can determine if it's a polar